In today's video, we're diving into the ultimate ranking of the top 50 military powers of 2024, according to Global Firepower. This isn't just another ranking. It's an in-depth analysis of the numbers, capabilities, and strategies that shape the global defense landscape. You'll be surprised to see who has risen in the ranks and who has fallen. Is your country among the most powerful? And how are emerging powers preparing for the future? Stay tuned until the end to find out who truly dominates the battlefield in 2024. Don't miss this strategic and enlightening analysis. It might just change your perspective on global military power. 50. Finland. The Finnish Defense Forces have 24,000 active military personnel and 870,000 reservists. The Army has 200 tanks and a total of 11,716 vehicles, in addition to 76 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 164 aircraft, and the Navy has 246 naval assets. The defense budget is $6,672,657,000. 49. Ethiopia. The Ethiopian National Defense Force has 162,000 active military personnel and no reservists, although the armed forces can carry out compulsory call-ups when necessary. The Army has 680 tanks and a total of 10,028 vehicles, along with 79 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 91 aircraft, and as a landlocked country, Ethiopia has no naval forces. The defense budget is $888,099,450. 48. Denmark. The armed forces of the Kingdom of Denmark have 20,000 active military personnel and 12,000 reservists. The Army has 44 tanks and a total of 4,056 vehicles. The Air Force has 119 aircraft, and the Navy has 91 naval assets. The defense budget is $6,350,932,500. 47. Romania. The Romanian Armed Forces have 81,300 active military personnel and 55,000 reservists. The Army has 345 tanks and a total of 9,990 vehicles, along with 225 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 131 aircraft, and the Navy has 20 naval assets. The defense budget is $8,160,000,000. 46. Czech Republic. The Czech Armed Forces have 28,000 active military personnel and 4,200 reservists. The Army has 65 tanks and a total of 6,757 vehicles. The Air Force has 88 aircraft, and since the country is landlocked, it has no Navy. The defense budget is $6,520,000,000. 45. Iraq. The Iraqi Armed Forces have 193,000 active military personnel and 500,000 reservists. The Army has 848 tanks and a total of 39,872 vehicles, along with 425 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 371 aircraft, and the Navy has 68 naval assets. The defense budget is $5,252,000,000. 44. Colombia. The Colombian military forces have 293,200 active military personnel and 35,000 reservists. The Army has 2,724 vehicles and does not have any tanks or rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 434 aircraft, and the Navy has 237 naval assets. The defense budget is $14,012,180,000. 43. Switzerland. The Swiss Army has 101,584 active military personnel and 49,715 reservists. The Army has 134 tanks and a total of 4,304 vehicles. The Air Force has 147 aircraft, and since Switzerland is landlocked, it has no Navy, although the Army uses patrol boats for river control. The defense budget is $9,300,000,000. 42. Malaysia. The Malaysian Armed Forces have 113,000 active military personnel and 51,600 reservists. The Army has 48 tanks and a total of 13,965 vehicles, along with 36 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 143 aircraft, and the Navy has 101 naval assets. The defense budget is $4,370 million. 41. Norway. The Norwegian Armed Forces have 23,250 active military personnel. The Army has 36 tanks and a total of 7,048 vehicles. The Air Force has 102 aircraft, and the Navy has 25 naval assets. The defense budget is $8,326,314,600. 40. Netherlands. The Dutch Armed Forces have 41,380 active military personnel and 6,765 reservists. The Army has 18 tanks and a total of 3,176 vehicles. The Air Force has 143 aircraft, and the Navy has 112 naval assets. The defense budget is $12,041,380,000. 39. Nigeria. The Nigerian Armed Forces have 230,000 active military personnel. The Army has 343 tanks and a total of 6,404 vehicles, along with 37 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 147 aircraft, and the Navy has 133 naval assets. The defense budget is $4 billion. 38. Portugal. The Portuguese Armed Forces have 24,000 active military personnel and 211,700 reservists. The Army has 34 tanks and a total of 11,173 vehicles. The Air Force has 117 aircraft, and the Navy has 113 naval assets. The defense budget is $4,908,900,000. 37. Bangladesh. The Bangladesh Armed Forces have 163,000 active military personnel. The Army has 320 tanks and a total of 13,100 vehicles, along with 71 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 216 aircraft, and the Navy has 117 naval assets. The defense budget is $6,995,040,000. 36. North Korea. The Korean People's Army, also known as the Armed Forces of North Korea, has 1,320,000 active military personnel and 560,000 reservists. The Army has 5,845 tanks and a total of 24,696 vehicles, along with 2,920 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 951 aircraft, and the Navy has 505 naval assets. The defense budget is $3,500 million. North Korea is estimated to have around 50 nuclear weapons. 35. Myanmar. The Tatmadaw, the official name of the Myanmar Armed Forces, has 150,000 active military personnel and 20,000 reservists. The Army has 705 tanks and a total of 8,139 vehicles, along with 586 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 293 aircraft, and the Navy has 227 naval assets. The defense budget is $2,700 million. 34. Philippines. The Armed Forces of the Philippines have 150,000 active military personnel and 1,200,000 reservists. The Army has 10 tanks and a total of 7,562 vehicles. The Air Force has 195 aircraft, and the Navy has 111 naval assets. The defense budget is $4,100 million. 33. South Africa. The South African National Defense Force has 71,000 active military personnel and 29,000 reservists. The Army has 195 tanks and a total of 12,140 vehicles, along with 101 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 194 aircraft, and the Navy has 47 naval assets. The defense budget is $2,695,346,150. 32. Greece. The Hellenic Armed Forces have 142,000 active military personnel and 221,000 reservists. The Army has 1,365 tanks and a total of 57,030 vehicles, along with 152 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 632 aircraft, and the Navy has 187 naval assets. The defense budget is $5,974,000,000. 31. Mexico. The Armed Forces of Mexico have 412,000 active military personnel and 98,000 reservists. The Army has a total of 17,601 vehicles. The Air Force has 462 aircraft, and the Navy has 194 naval assets. The defense budget is $14,824,000,000. 30. Singapore. The Singapore Armed Forces have 51,000 active military personnel and 252,000 reservists. The Army has 170 tanks and a total of 8,318 vehicles, along with 24 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 247 aircraft, and the Navy has 43 naval assets. The defense budget is $13,493,000,000. 29. Sweden. The Swedish Armed Forces have 24,000 active military personnel and 32,000 reservists. The Army has 120 tanks and a total of 7,958 vehicles. The Air Force has 212 aircraft, and the Navy has 353 naval assets. The defense budget is $11,349,506,000. 28. Argentina. The Argentine Armed Forces have 108,000 active military personnel. The Army has 348 tanks and a total of 21,724 vehicles, along with 26 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 229 aircraft, and the Navy has 41 naval assets. The defense budget is $2,544,000,000. 27. Canada. The Canadian Forces have 68,000 active military personnel and 27,000 reservists. The Army has 74 tanks and a total of 18,054 vehicles. The Air Force has 375 aircraft, and the Navy has 67 naval assets. The defense budget is $26,500,000,000. 26. Algeria. The Algerian Armed Forces have 325,000 active military personnel and 135,000 reservists. The Army has 1,632 tanks and a total of 35,990 vehicles, along with 236 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 605 aircraft, and the Navy has 213 naval assets. The defense budget is $21,600,000,000. 25. Thailand. The Royal Thai Armed Forces have 360,000 active military personnel and 200,000 reservists. The Army has 648 tanks and a total of 14,040 vehicles, along with 26 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 501 aircraft, and the Navy has 293 naval assets. The defense budget is $7,700,000,000. 24. Taiwan. The Armed Forces of Taiwan, considered one of the best military forces in Asia, have 215,000 active military personnel and 2,310,000 reservists. The Army has 1,010 tanks and a total of 19,868 vehicles, along with 223 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 750 aircraft, and the Navy has 93 naval assets. The defense budget is $19,100,000,000. 23. Saudi Arabia. The Saudi armed forces have 257,000 active military personnel. The army has 1,485 tanks and a total of 20,694 vehicles, along with 490 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 914 aircraft, and the Navy has 57 naval assets. The impressive defense budget is $71,720 million, the fifth largest in the world. 22. Vietnam. The People's Army of Vietnam has 600 active military personnel and 5 million reservists. The Army has 2,029 tanks and a total of 18,578 vehicles, along with 450 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 226 aircraft, and the Navy has 97 naval assets. The defense budget is $7,900 million. 21. Poland. The armed forces of the Republic of Poland have 202,000 active military personnel and 350,000 reservists. The Army has 612 tanks and a total of 13,956 vehicles, along with 211 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 468 aircraft, and the Navy has 45 naval assets. The defense budget is $38,360 million. Spain. The Spanish armed forces have 133,000 active military personnel and 15,000 reservists. The Army has 327 tanks and a total of 15,046 vehicles. The Air Force has 513 aircraft, and the Navy has 168 naval assets. The defense budget is $22 billion. Germany. The Unified Armed Forces of Germany have 181,000 active military personnel and 34,000 reservists. The Army has 295 tanks and a total of 79,317 vehicles, plus 33 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 618 aircraft, and the Navy has 64 naval assets. The defense budget is $55,941,410,000, the seventh largest in the world. Ukraine. The armed forces of Ukraine have 900,000 active military personnel and 1.2 million reservists. The Army has 1,777 tanks and a total of 22,110 vehicles, plus 491 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 321 aircraft, and the Navy has 104 naval assets, noting that these figures may fluctuate due to the ongoing war with Russia. The defense budget is around $42 billion due to financial aid the country has been receiving from the United States and NATO. Israel. The Israel Defense Forces have 170,000 active military personnel and 475,000 reservists. The Army has 1,370 tanks and a total of 43,407 vehicles, plus 150 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 612 aircraft, and the Navy has 67 naval assets. The defense budget is $24,400 million. It is estimated that Israel possesses about 90 nuclear weapons. Australia. The Australian Defence Forces have 57,000 active military personnel and 32,000 reservists. The Army has 59 tanks and a total of 16,162 vehicles. The Air Force has 325 aircraft, and the Navy has 43 naval assets. The defense budget is $52,559 million, the ninth largest in the world. Egypt. The armed forces of Egypt have 440,000 active military personnel and 480,000 reservists. The Army has 5,340 tanks and a total of 77,596 vehicles, plus 1,119 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 1,080 aircraft, and the Navy has 140 naval assets. The defense budget is $9,400 million. Iran. The armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran have 610,000 active military personnel and 350,000 reservists. The army has 1,996 tanks and a total of 65,765 vehicles, plus 775 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 551 aircraft, and the Navy has 101 naval assets. The defense budget is $9,954,451,000. Indonesia. The National Armed Forces of Indonesia have 400,000 active military personnel and 400,000 reservists. The Army has 313 tanks and a total of 11,604 vehicles, plus 63 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 474 aircraft, and the Navy has 333 naval assets. The defense budget is $25 billion. Brazil. The Brazilian Armed Forces have 360,000 active military personnel and 340,000 reservists. The Army has 469 tanks and a total of 44,044 vehicles, plus 78 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 628 aircraft, and the Navy has 134 naval assets. The defense budget is $24,752,000,000. Brazil is the second largest military force in America. Only behind the United States, however, the country is the largest force in Latin America and the Southern Hemisphere. France. The French armed forces have 200,000 active military personnel and 26,000 reservists. The Army has 222 tanks and a total of 85,023 vehicles, plus 9 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 972 aircraft, and the Navy has 128 naval assets. The defense budget is $49,730,000,000, the 10th largest in the world. It is estimated that France possesses about 290 nuclear weapons. Italy. The Italian armed forces have 165,000 active military personnel and 18,000 reservists. The Army has 200 tanks and a total of 61,892 vehicles, in addition to 21 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 800 aircraft, and the Navy has 309 naval assets. The defense budget is $31,600,000,000. Pakistan. The Pakistani armed forces have 654,000 active military personnel and 550,000 reservists. The Army has 3,742 tanks and a total of 50,523 vehicles, in addition to 602 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 1,434 aircraft, and the Navy has 114 naval assets. The defense budget is $6,349,876,689, a very low figure for its military power. It is estimated that Pakistan has about 165 nuclear weapons. Turkey. The Turkish armed forces have 355,000 active military personnel and 378,000 reservists. The Army has 2,231 tanks and a total of 55,104 vehicles, in addition to 286 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 1,069 aircraft, and the Navy has 186 naval assets. The defense budget is $40 billion. Japan. The Japan Self-Defense Forces have 247,000 active military personnel and 56,000 reservists. The Army has 518 tanks and a total of 37,662 vehicles, in addition to 54 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 1,459 aircraft, and the Navy has 155 naval assets. The defense budget is $53 billion, the 8th largest in the world. United Kingdom. The British Armed Forces have 184,000 active military personnel and 924,000 reservists. The Army has 213 tanks and a total of 27,203 vehicles, in addition to 41 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 664 aircraft, and the Navy has 117 naval assets. The defense budget is $62,816,382,000, the sixth largest in the world. It is estimated that the United Kingdom has about 225 nuclear weapons. South Korea. The armed forces of the Republic of Korea have 600,000 active military personnel and 3,100,000 reservists. The Army has 2,501 tanks and a total of 66,492 vehicles, in addition to 581 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 1,576 aircraft, and the Navy has 200 naval assets. The defense budget is $44,700,000,000. India. The Indian Armed Forces have 1,455,000 active military personnel and 1,155,000 reservists. The Army has 4,614 tanks and a total of 151,248 vehicles, in addition to 702 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 2,296 aircraft, and the Navy has 294 naval assets. The defense budget is $74 billion, the fourth largest in the world. It is estimated that India has about 156 nuclear weapons. China. The People's Liberation Army of China has 2,035,000 active military personnel and 510,000 reservists. The Army has 5,000 tanks and a total of 174,300 vehicles, in addition to 3,180 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 3,304 aircraft, and the Navy has 730 naval assets. The defense budget is $227 billion, the second largest in the world. It is estimated that China has about 350 nuclear weapons. Russia. The armed forces of the Russian Federation have 1,320,000 active military personnel and 2 million reservists. The Army has 14,777 tanks and a total of 161,382 vehicles, in addition to 3,065 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 4,255 aircraft, and the Navy has 781 naval assets. The defense budget is $109 billion, the third largest in the world. It is estimated that Russia has about 6,257 nuclear weapons, the largest nuclear arsenal in the world. United States. The United States Armed Forces have 1,328,000 active military personnel and 800,000 reservists. The Army has 4,657 tanks and a total of 360,069 vehicles, in addition to 694 rocket artillery systems. The Air Force has 13,209 aircraft, and the Navy has 472 naval assets. The defense budget is $831,781,000,000, the largest defense budget in the world. It is estimated that the United States has about 5,550 nuclear weapons. And that wraps up our ranking of the top 50 military powers of 2024. If you enjoyed this content and want to keep exploring global military strength, be sure to check out our other videos here on Military Schedule. We've got detailed analyses, untold battlefield stories, and much more for you. So subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you don't miss any new releases, and share this video with your friends. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll continue to uncover the behind the scenes of armed forces around the world. Until then.